Khalil Rountree will piece up Jamahal Hill.
I'm fighting Jamahal Hill. Every fan will be interested in this matchup because they know that we both hit hard and that we possess knockout power. I'm prepared to win this fight and show the world that I'm the guy.
I'm a former champion. I do see a way to get back into title contention. Khalil Rountree comes out to do damage, but my fighting style can be the kryptonite to his fighting style. I will knock out Khalil Rountree.
The biggest mistake that Hill can make is to think that I'm not a problem. I bring strength, I bring speed, I bring everything to this fight that Hill does not. I see the fight playing out with my hand raised in the air. That's it.
Rountree vs Hill are set for the main event of UFC Bakau, and although Jamahal Hill is a former champion, and although he does have a lot of skill and a lot of power, I'm here to tell you that Khalil Rountree will not only win, but he will piece up Jamahal Hill. But quickly, before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm JuicyMMA, I make opinionative MMA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. Also be sure to hit that join button for exclusive channel perks. But anyways, let's get into it. When you talk about the career of Khalil Rountree, it certainly was an up and down affair, as earlier on in his UFC career, he was putting some wins together, but he also wasn't putting anything together consistently. He was winning a couple fights here, he was losing a couple fights there, and overall he was doing enough to stay in the UFC, as he definitely was extremely talented, but he wasn't necessarily putting wins together in order to be a legitimate championship contender. But when you look at Khalil Rountree over his last 5 or so fights, it seems like he's finally putting things together. As before the Alex Pereira fight, he was on a 4-fight win streak, finishing most of those opponents, and even when you look at his fight against Alex Pereira, it was a relatively successful one for him, as although he did lose via a 4th round TKO, he did at the same time have a lot of success in that fight. He was able to drop Alex Pereira, he was able to land on him very consistently, and overall he just had a lot more success than a lot of fans and a lot of pundits thought he may. And it seems like during his last 5 or 6 fights, every time we see Khalil Rountree out there, he looks a little bit better than the fight prior. And I do think that's going to continue in this fight against Jamahal Hill. But a question that some of you may be wondering at this point is, how has Khalil Rountree been able to be so successful thus far? Well, in my opinion, I think it comes down to a couple different factors, but the first and main factor I want to touch upon is his speed. Because when you talk about most light heavyweights out there, they're mostly known for their power. But when you talk about Rountree, although yes, he definitely does have a good amount of power, he has a lot of finishes on his record, at the end of the day, a huge reason for why that is due to his speed. When you watch Rountree fight against most guys, it seems like the guys that he fights are just surprised by how fast he truly is, and he's able to land a lot more shots on these fighters than other guys probably would. And I think a perfect example of this is his fight against Alex Pereira, as in that first round, in those first few rounds honestly, Rountree was able to land a ton on Pereira, and it seemed like the speed that he had really surprised Alex in there. And regardless of what a lot of fans think about Pereira's defense, as I know a lot of fans say that his defense isn't all that good, when you look throughout Alex's career in the UFC, he doesn't get hit all that much. Outside of that one huge shot that Israel Adesanya landed on him, Pereira really doesn't get hit all that much. So the fact that Kahlil was able to land consistently on Alex, and he was even able to drop him in that fight, is a huge testament to how fast Rountree truly is. But the next factor for why I think Kahlil has had so much success in the UFC thus far is due to his actual striking game. Because when you watch Rountree out there, he is pretty diverse on the feet. At range, he's able to do a nice job at utilizing his jab, left straight, and some kicks to the legs, body, and head. But once he's able to get on that inside, that's really where Rountree becomes dangerous. As on that inside, Rountree does a great job at landing hooks to the head and body, as well as perfectly timed uppercuts. As when you look back and watch his fight against Anthony Smith, Rountree was able to utilize footwork to get on the inside and land land a perfectly timed uppercut on Smith, knocking him out from there. So overall, I think the versatility of Rountree on the feet, all the skills that he does have, combined with the speed that I mentioned before, is a huge reason for why Rountree has been so dangerous in the UFC thus far, and is a huge reason for why I think he's been so successful thus far as well. But the last reason for why I think Khalil Rountree has been so successful thus far is due to his defensive wrestling. Because as I touched upon before, Rountree is very dangerous on the feet. He's able to do a great job at landing on a lot of these guys, and he's also able to do a great job at finishing most of his opponents as well. So this guy's going to want to keep the fight on the feet, and if he's getting taken down and he's on his back, obviously he's not going to be able to win many fights like that. And earlier on in his career, I think we saw him getting taken down a little bit too much and not being able to implement his game. But when you look at some of his fights on his win streak and some of his fights as of late, Rountree has done a much better job at stopping takedowns, or even at times when he does get taken down, getting right back up, getting right back into his kitchen and getting right back to the place where he wants to be out there, which is on the feet. So I think Rountree's improved counter wrestling is also making him a much more diverse and much more complete fighter. But another question that some of you may be wondering at this point is, why do I think Khalil Rountree is going to piece up Jamahal Hill? Well, I feel this way for a couple different reasons, but the first reason that I want to touch upon is Rountree's speed. Because as I touched upon before, Rountree's speed gives problems to essentially everybody, but especially when you talk about Jamahal Hill, I think it's going to be an absolute nightmare for him. Because Jamahal Hill, although he does have great power and although he does have an ability to land on a lot of his opponents, at the end of the day, he's one of the slower guys at the light heavyweight division. It's apparently obvious in essentially all of the fights that he's in, but especially when you talk about a matchup between him and Khalil Rountree, I think the speed difference is going to be immense. I think Rountree is going to be able to get on that inside. I think he's going to be able to land effectively and consistently on Jamahal Hill, and I think for every shot that Jamahal Hill's able to land on Rountree, Rountree is going to land 5 or maybe even 10 shots. So overall, I do think the speed is going to be a significant factor in this fight. But the next factor for why I think Khalil Rountree is going to piece up Jamahal Hill is due to his footwork. Because it's not even like Khalil Rountree has amazing footwork out there, but he has significantly better footwork than Jamahal Hill. And in this fight, I think the winner is going to be determined by the real estate on which this fight is fought. If this fight is fought at range, I think Jamahal Hill is going to have an advantage. But if Rountree is able to get on that inside and land those body shots and land those uppercuts and land those hooks to the head, I think he's going to have a lot of success. And I think based off the footwork alone, that's going to allow Khalil Rountree to implement his game plan, get on the inside, and have a lot of success over Jamahal Hill. But the last reason for why I think Khalil Rountree is going to piece up Jamahal Hill is due to his technical ability. Because as I touched upon before, Rountree is relatively refined, both at space but also on the inside. And when you talk about Jamahal Hill, yes, he does have power, but I do think he does lean into that power a lot, and that's how he's been able to get a lot of his wins in the UFC, as opposed to being an extremely technical fighter out there. So I think the difference in technical ability is also going to prove to be a difference maker in this fight between the two men. And at the end of the day, I just think there's more paths to victory, and there's a more likely path to victory for Khalil Rountree in this matchup as opposed to Jamahal Hill. But if I had to give my official prediction for this matchup, I would lean towards Khalil Rountree, and I would lean towards a Rountree finish in round 4 or round 5. But of course, as I mentioned before, Jamahal Hill does have a lot of power, and if he's able to land one of those big left hands flush on a Rountree, who knows what can happen from there. Maybe we're talking about a Jamahal Hill TKO or KO finish. But I guess only time will tell what does end up happening in this fight. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Khalil Rountree will piece up Jamahal Hill, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, check one of these 2 videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.